Hey, college wrestling fans, it's JT1 Wrestle here. Today we have a great guest. He is fairly new to the world of collegiate wrestling media, but he has so far proven himself to be very prolific and very well known. Probably one of the best wrestling media guys on Twitter today. Please welcome to the show, Cradle Zone.
What up, y'all? I'm excited to be in this with you, Steven.
All right, man. So what we decided we're gonna cover today is we took a look at all of the wrestlers in NCAA Division One who may not be on the radar for everybody else. They may not be, extremely high ranked, may not be the kind of guys people are expecting a lot out of, but both Cradle Zone and I feel these are wrestlers that could come onto the scene this year, make a big difference, and show that they deserve more respect and recognition than maybe they're getting at the beginning of the season. We're going to start off at 125 pounds. So one of my dark horse picks is Blake West of Northern Illinois. So far in his career, he has been third, second, first at the Mid American Conference Championships. Last year alone, he was a runner up at both the Michigan State Open as well as the Midlands tournament. And really, where you can see how West could have a breakout season is in some of the losses he had last year. He had a extremely good match. I was there in person up there in DeKalb, Illinois, watching the Huskies take on the Boilermakers of Purdue, and he wrestled NCAA Division One finalist, three-time All-American Matt Ramos to a 5-4 decision, and was literally just seconds away from getting a reversal that would have won him that match. And then he also had a really great match against Iowa's Dean Peterson, where he lost an 8-7 decision. So I think West is one of those kids that people aren't thinking of him as a top eight guy right now, but he could definitely finish top eight in the nation by the end of 2026.
I will say he is a All-American contender for sure. Like looking at some of these wins, he didn't do bad at the NCAA championships. He took down Max Gallagher out of Penn, and then took down Max Momentero out of Oregon State, and kept it close between Caleb Smith of Nebraska last year.
Yeah, that was a one takedown match. That was a four to one decision, and it could have, in my opinion, could have gone either way. And Smith got that takedown at the end to win 4-1. So you're 100% right about that.
Yeah, he had a really good season. He made round of 16. He went 24-7. This will be his final year, but according to WrestleStat, they have him at number 13 right now. And the year before, he was a qualifier as well, going 23-8, and had some pretty decent wins that year as well. And it would be nice to see Northern Illinois get an All-American.
I I agree with that.
So on my list, I have two wrestlers, but I'll go off with Jacob Morin of Indiana. Last year, he was a round of 16 finisher and went 26-11, had some good wins, took down Max Momentera and Max Gallagher as well. He beat Cooper Flynn almost a major decision, as well as beating Brennan McCrone and Mark Anthony McGowan.
Yeah, definitely some really great wins there for Moran as well. I'm trying to remember right now. I believe Midland's place winner last year. Is that correct?
It looks like he lost twice to Dean Peterson and then Diego Santella. So it looks like he got fourth place there.
That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's where he beat Mark Anthony McGowan, and was it Anthony that almost took down Vincent Robinson in the second round?
Yeah, it was. God, it came down to like he was ahead uh with very few seconds left in the match, and Robinson came back from nowhere to win that match and then eventually be our national champion. So it just goes to show you in NCAA Division One wrestling, we put so much emphasis on where guys finish at the end of the year, but so many of these matches, if you go back and look through the brackets, tiebreakers, sudden victories, 1 point matches, if you held the exact same tournament with the exact same seeds like a month later, you might get a. I mean, there's going to be guys. There's certain guys that are always going to be there, right? Certain guys are always going to be All Americans, always going to be national title contenders. But a lot of times, the difference between the guy that finishes 2-2 and the guy that finishes seventh is simply the guy that won those 1 point matches, those overtime matches, stuff like that.
Yeah, so this might be a biased pick, but I got another guy at 125, Bear Jordan of Oklahoma. He went 12-3 last year in his redshirt year. Took down guys like Ty Tice, Kirk McHenry, and took down Coda Holman. And he kept it really close between Spencer Moore, only lost 2-0, and then Kevon Roller, another qualifier, lost 8-7 against him.
The thing I'm going to say real quick, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I got a video coming up here pretty soon about some of the best wrestle offs in NCAA Division One wrestling coming up. I think one of his toughest matches this year is going to be in the room against Conrad Hendrickson.
So I don't know if OU is doing wrestle off this year because
Really?
it's not on their schedule, but they are going to Tiger style invite, and I think they're going to use that to see who will start. And
Okay.
I will say in the room, Conrad has looked really good, but so has Barrick. Barrick went to Cuba to learn some Greco-Roman stuff from I forgot his name, but he's a Greco-Roman legend there. And he trained with Spencer Lee and Liam Cronin and Austin DeSanto this offseason as well. So I would not be surprised if Barrick is an All-American.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. All right, we're going to move on to 133 pounds. JT1 Wrestle's pick for underdog, a dark horse here. I'm going to go with Julian Farber of Northern Iowa. I think this guy is 100% a head case, and we kind of saw a little bit of that last year. At the first of the year, right at the beginning of January last year, he was on fire. He won a lot of great matches, did a great job, and then at the beginning of February, kind of fell into a slump again. But right around the Big 12s. He was right back to where he needed to be. It's obvious to me that when head coach Doug Schwab can get inside of this kid's head, he can beat just about anybody. He is a tough kid. He's from the Southeast, proving that these Southeast schools in the southeastern part of the United States can produce some great talent. At the Big 12s, he just wrestled his heart out to a third place finish with a amazing 14-13 win over Evan Frost of Iowa State. And then at the NCAAs, even though he didn't have the best NCAA, what he did do that really impressed me is once again wrestled his heart out and won a 9-8 match against two-time All-American Anthony Nato of Lock Haven. So I really think that if Doug Schwab can get inside this kid's head, I think there's no reason at all why Julian Farber, who I like to call Gambit because he kind of looks like Gambit from the X-Men, there's no reason why he can't be an All-American this year.
Yeah, I see what you mean. He's had some really good wins. He took down eventual Big 12 champion Dominic Serrano earlier in the year, beat NCAA qualifier Derek Cardinal, as well as looks like he'll start for Oklahoma State this year, Cale Hughes. He took down Cleveland Belton, and that loss against Hunter Leak in the Big 12, which was a pretty big upset at the time. I feel like that was a wake-up call because after that, he didn't lose a single match. He beat Whitcraft, he beat Evan Frost, he beat Cade Moore, and then he beat Case Smaga of Utah Valley. And yeah, like you said, he didn't have the best championship, but when you look back at it, he took down Anthony Noto, and then he had to face finalist Drake Iola, and then he had to face All-American Jacob Van Dee of Nebraska.
Yeah, we don't talk about this very much, and I think a lot of times we have too much pride in wrestling to mention this, but a lot of times where you end up finishing has a lot to do with placement in the bracket and luck. You got to have some good luck. I mean, you can be a really great wrestler and you can go in prepared and have everything ready to go physically and mentally, but you also need that handful of luck in your back pocket, which a lot of times has to do with where you're placed in the bracket in order to be able to succeed at the level that you want to succeed at. That is a factor we often overlook.
I agree. You have some luck at some point. Like you could say Carter Strachey becoming a five-time champ. You could say he had some luck for sure, especially when he had that injury, but he had to fight through that injury. But I'll say my 133 pick is Dylan Chappell of Bucknell. He went 22-12 last year, one win away from becoming an All-American for Bucknell. Took down guys like Moshe Schwartz with the pin, Grayson Clark, two-time All-American Sam Latona, and I believe he took down Braden Brazil of Army as well, and Elisha Rivera of Princeton. So I would not be surprised if he were All-American, but he has a very tough schedule this year.
I'm a huge fan of that pick. I really like Chappelle a lot. He's a tough kid, three-time EIWA runner-up. So he's looking at winning his first championship this year, and I'd love to see that. And I got a couple of guys on my list from Bucknell we're going to talk about later on, and this is what I was going to say about them. I don't think that head coach Dan Werzenberger and staff get anywhere near the credit they deserve because the the Bison are a team that I guess it's because we have so many other teams out there that everybody is so concentrated on Penn State, Oklahoma State, Iowa, so on and so forth. But if you look at Bucknell and what they're slowly starting to do and slowly starting to build their team, they got a list of what I consider to be probably three or four kids this year that are going to be those top 12, top 8 contenders this year. And I don't think Bucknell gets anywhere near the credit they deserve for the kind of development that they're having with their program.
Yeah, they got Dylan Chappell at 141, Noah Mulvaney at 165, Miles Takak at 174, Dylan Bechtold, who is another underdog at
You
97.
just named two of my guys I got on my list.
Well, the funny thing as well is OU's gonna wrestle off against them, I believe December 15th after they wrestle Penn State at home. Well, at Penn State. So the next person I have at 141 is
No, we're still
Aiden
at
Valen.
133, bud.
Oh, what's the
You skip over
133? Excuse me.
133.
Next one I have is Blake Borman of Purdue. He's a
Good pick.
Chattanooga transfer.
Good pick.
And I just realized I made a mistake. I accidentally said Dylan Chappelle at 141. So I accidentally skipped on Sean Spidel of Northwestern.
Well, that's all right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
Speidel is a transfer of Central Michigan.
and he looks really good as well. He had that pretty big upset against Dylan Shaw. I think he was one win away from becoming an All-American. But Blake Borman from Purdue, he's transferring from Chattanooga. He had a really good season. He didn't have the best championship. He ended up losing to Tyler Knox in overtime and Tyler Farah of uh, Cornell, but he had a really good season. He went 20-8. He placed at Southern Scuffle, had some pretty good wins there, took down Cleveland Belton, TK Davis, and he made your decision, Nazir Bailey, at the beginning of the year.
I'm very happy for Purdue. I really like their program. It's kind of funny. My all-time favorite Iowa Hawkeye, Tony Ursuline, is the head coach of Purdue. And then I call myself JT number one. I've told this story 1,000 times. Back when I was probably around your age, I was a 14, 15-year-old kid. I was getting into this whole covering wrestling thing, and I wanted to sound cool. Who's my favorite wrestlers? My favorite wrestlers at the time were Johnny Thompson of Oklahoma State and Leroy Vega, who is the assistant coach now at Purdue. And literally, I was either going to call myself Johnny Thompson number one, or I was going to call myself Leroy Vega number one. That came down to a quarter flip. And it landed on the side of Johnny Thompson, but I was this close to being Leroy Vega number one because those two were my absolute favorites. So, with that said, it's obvious that I'm a big fan of Purdue and I'm a big fan of Purdue's coaching staff. However, I was a little sad to see him leave Chattanooga because Chattanooga they've had some struggling years in recent times, and I thought Borman was going to be one of the guys to help build that program back up, but you always got to do what's best for yourself, which I support 100%. So once again, I am happy for Purdue in that aspect.
Yeah, like you said, Chattanooga, they've lost some guys. They just lost Isaiah Powell, and I believe he transferred to a D2 college in Iowa. And
Actually, he transferred. I don't mean to interrupt you, but he actually transferred to a junior college in Iowa. He'll be wrestling for Iowa Central this year in the
and he's
NJCAA ranks.
he's a sophomore right now, so his senior year, we could see him come back to D1 wrestling. But
Yes,
they
sir.
also lost. They also lost a guy like Sergio DeSanti. He ended up transferring to Virginia Tech, and Noah Castilla. He graduated, so they don't really have any big names on that roster.
Yeah, it's going to be a rebuilding year for the Mocs, that's for sure. So are we ready to move on to 141?
Yep. Who's your
All
pick?
right. All right. My pick at 141 pounds, Lock Haven's Wyatt Henson. He is a three-time NCAA Division One qualifier. He has been a runner-up in the Mid-American Championships the past two seasons. He actually has a 9-1 major decision over your pick, Dylan Chappelle. Defeated him last year. Henson is one of those guys. I'll say this about Henson. Henson is probably one of the toughest wrestlers on top. When this guy gets on top of you, he can turn you. He had 21 uh, wins by bonus last year, 27 wins in all, and 21 of them came via bonus wins. 13 technical falls, six major decisions, and then two pins. This is the kind of guy when he gets on top of you, he's like a leech. He'll get on top of you and he'll figure out a way to turn you. He's going to tilt you, he's going to put you like in a grapevine or a guillotine or something. When this guy gets on top of you, good luck getting out. The problem is with him, ironically, is that his bottom skills are not as anywhere near as good as his top skills. And he's decent on his feet, but if this guy can learn to work. Imagine that he already has, but the key to him when he's wrestling is to figure out a way to be on top as much as possible because this guy is just an absolute monster in the top position. And I think if people aren't doing their homework against Henson, he could pull off some really big upsets this season.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Henson. I was sad to see when he left Oklahoma after he had a really good season for his first year transfer from Iowa. But we'll say Lock Haven is definitely a sneaky team. Last year Henson he didn't have the best championship. He took out uh, Shannon Hanna of Campbell, but got tech followed by Brock Hardy, and then lost in the consolation by Joey Oliver. But I will say I wouldn't be surprised if he would All-American, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does not All-American because he's kind of that wrestler that lives or dies by the soul.
Yeah, that's an excellent observation on Henson. I agree with that a lot. I actually had two picks at 141 pounds. Another one is a guy that I think people have kind of forgotten about because of certain reasons. I'm talking about Frankie Tal Shahar of Northwestern. He's a two-time NCAA Division One qualifier. He redshirted in 2024, and then unfortunately he was hurt for 2025. So I think, wrestling fans, their memories kind of fade and they come back, kind of fade, kind of come back. So I don't think he's on too many radars, but let me tell you why he should be on people's radars. This is a guy that has a 17-7 major decision over Jacob Frost. He also has a 5-3 win over Joey Olivier of Rutgers. And then he has a 3-1 win, sudden victory over Tom Crook of Virginia Tech, another guy that I think is an All American candidate. And then he also has a 3-2 decision over two-time All American Dylan De Emilio of Ohio State. So I think Frankie Tal Shahar is one of these guys that's going to start off 225, 226 as, like, who is this guy? We all forgot about him. And then I think probably by about the first of the year, it's like people are going to know the name FTS.
It is a good thing that Northwestern's getting him back. He hasn't wrestled since 2023, but I don't think that's going to affect him. Northwestern's low weights are looking good. You got Central Michigan transfer Sean Speidel. You got Dedrick Navarro at 125. You're getting Frankie back, and you also got Sam Cartello at 149, who almost beat Rich Lovett at the national championship in the first round.
And I got to think about his name real quick. It just escaped my head, but there's a guy, and you're going to help me. Hopefully, you can help me out with this name. But there's a guy. He's a two-time All-American for Northwestern, and then he transferred to Michigan, but then he transferred back to Northwestern. And
Uh,
Chris Castillo, is that right, or something like that? His first name is
oh, Chris
Chris, but I
Cannon.
can't.
Chris
Christopher
Cannon.
Cannon. That's right. Chris
Yeah,
Cannon was the name I was thinking of. Go ahead.
he's now at Minnesota,
Oh,
and
he
I will
transferred to
say
Minnesota now. Holy cow! I didn't realize that. Wow.
I'm pretty sure he's been wrestling since 2020 or like 2019. But
He's been around a
Chris
long time.
Chris Cannon, I mean, when he's healthy, he's really good. The problem is when he's healthy, because
Right.
when he is
Right.
healthy, he's an All-American threat. But when he's barely hurt, he's made of glass, and it's not hard to. People used to fear Chris Cannon, but now they really don't. They see him as kind of a tune-up match.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd love to see him back to form. I'd love to see him back 100%. You were just naming the some tough guys from Northwestern, and I was just thinking there's a guy right there that's been kind of gone lost and forgotten by a lot of people, but definitely if he comes back and he's able to get back to form and back to 100%, which is a very difficult thing to do. Like you said, he is an all-American threat.
So my next 141 pick is Aiden Valencia of Stanford. Last year he went 3-3 in his redshirt year, had some pretty good wins, took down Zach Reddington, a NCAA qualifier for Iowa State, and Elijah Rivera, qualifier for Princeton. And his losses weren't really bad when you look at it. He only lost 4-1 in overtime against All-American Cale Happel, lost 2-0 against Sergio Lemley of Michigan, and then got major decision against a two-time All-American, one-time All-American Ed Scott of North Carolina or NC State.
I'm glad you brought up Valencia's name. I'm wondering, let's take a look at Jason Miranda last year, the Stanford starter, while Valencia was redshirting. Miranda was a four-time starter for the Cardinal, but his first time ever qualifying was last year as a senior. And I really think that having Valencia in the room with him may have been why he was able to get up to that level of being an NCAA qualifier and having some of the big wins that he had last year.
He did have some pretty good wins. He took down Elijah Rivera by major decision. Uh, Looks like he also took down Jaden Scott in the ACC championship, but his national championship, he got tech fault by Jacob Frost. He beat AJ Raillo 4-1 and then was pinned by Tegan Jameson. But I will say that he made it his senior year with Valencia in the room. Definitely helped him out a lot. But speaking of Stanford, they're getting back Nico Provo and Jackson Arlington this year. They're going to be pretty good to watch. Oh, and no, not Jackson Arlington, Daniel Cardenas, my fault.
Yeah, yeah, that's all right.
So I'd
Yeah,
say Stanford is definitely a sneaky team to watch.
yeah, I would agree with that. So are we ready for what 149?
I am. Who's your pick?
So 149 pounds. So I don't really have a whole lot of like backing for why I'm saying this. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. But Cal Miller sticks out to me from Maryland. His older, well, I think they're twins actually, but Ethan, I believe, is out of eligibility this year.
No,
Um,
Ethan has transferred to Virginia Tech.
oh, he's at Virginia Tech now. Okay, that's why I didn't find him on the roster for Maryland. All right, that explains that. You're a one up on me there. But the Miller boys have always been so tough. They've always been those kind of guys where when you go out there with them, you are going to have to give it hell all 7 minutes if you want to beat these guys.
Yeah,
And
Cal, excuse
go
me, I'm
ahead,
sorry.
sorry. No, 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 no. I think you're going to say the same. I think we're going in the same direction here. He's just one of these guys where you don't want to get behind when you're wrestling him. Because if you get behind, he's the kind of guy that's going to upset you. I think that I think Maryland is due for someone to get on the award stand. I don't believe I could be wrong about this, but I think Yusuf Hamida was the last All American for the Terrapins. Is that right, or was there somebody after
Uh,
him?
they had Jackson Smith this year
That's
at
right. That's
184.
right. Yep, that's right. I don't know why I said that. That's right. He was an All-American this year as well. But lower weight wise, I think that Cal Miller or middleweight wise, however you want to say that, I think he could be an All-American this year. Tough kid.
So last year he's a three-time qualifier. He went 20-11 last year. He went 0 for 2 at the didn't have a really good championship. He lost to Kanan Webster, major decision, and then lost to Carson DeRosa of the Citadel. But he's had some good wins. He's beaten Drew Roberts of Minnesota, Dylan Glitcher, Glitcher of Michigan twice. Uh, yeah, I'd say he's definitely one of those tough guys, but he's definitely not a full-time All-American. I'd say he's one of the lower guys like an All-American. kind of like a seventh or an eighth place finish.
I would agree with that.
And Maryland, like you said, they have a pretty decent team. They got Braxton Brown at 133. They lost Ethan Miller, but well, actually, when you're looking at it, Maryland only has Cal Miller and Braxton Brown and Jackson Smith. So they got a decent team, but I'd say that they're definitely going to be one of those lower guys in the league.
Sure. Sure, that
So
definitely makes sense.
so I got two 149 picks, but the first one I'll go with is Joseph Zargo of Wisconsin. You know, he took a red shirt last year. He's a three-time NCAA qualifier. He's had some good wins over Jude Swisher of Penn. He's beaten Willie McDougald, Michael Setta of Rutgers, uh, Drew Roberts two times, and I will say I wouldn't be surprised if he is a low All-American, but I'd say he definitely can All-American. But it really just depends who's in the room with him because, you know, his partners are Carson Exford, a freshman, and then Luke Melcher at 157.
I really like the pick of Joey Zargo. Sways and I, for those of you out there that watch some of my other videos, do a lot of videos with the Sways, and he and I were talking. Wisconsin's one of those teams that gets a lot of unfair criticism sometimes. I think Chris Bono is doing a much better job than what he gets credit for a lot of times. He unfortunately kind of had, some, and this happens sometimes. He had some mishaps, some of the guys, like DJ Hamadi ended up leaving and so on and so forth. But I think I don't think that was so much a reflection of what was going on at Wisconsin as much as it is a reflection of just the times period. I think as time goes on, we're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to see a lot more kids going from here to there to here to there because like I said before, like we were talking about Borman a little while ago leaving Chattanooga and going to Purdue, correct? I think we're going to see a lot more of this, and I don't think it really has anything to do with not being happy at a place or the coaches are bad or anything like that. It's simply a matter of who can offer me the most, who's going to offer me the best scholarships, who's going to offer me the best chance to be a national champion, who's going to offer me the best chance to later on, train for the Olympics and the World Championships. That's more so, I think, what it's really a part of. So I think a lot of criticism that Chris Bono has received in recent years. I think a lot of it is misplaced and misconstrued. And I think that he's going to show this year with guys like Joey Zargo and Braxton Amos, for example, that are two guys, and he's got some really good lightweights as well. I think Wisconsin's going to be a lot better this year than what people are giving them credit for. If you're looking at it from a dark horse team standpoint.
Yeah, they got Nicolo Rivera at 125. I think he was only one spot away. And then fourth place finisher Zane Fugit at 133. So yeah, they're definitely a dark horse contender. I wouldn't say that for the Big Ten standings though. They definitely will be middle to bottom range because the Big Ten is just really
Oh,
good.
it's loaded.
But
Absolutely
if
loaded.
they were in other conferences like the Big 12, I would say they would be like a top three, top five team. But when you were also saying like what team will give me the best opportunity, you also take into the fact of NIL opportunities. You know, like when Stephen Buchanan left OU, Iowa offered him $1 million. They offered Corey Tima and Kyle Parker 500,000. Well, excuse me, they offered Buchanan 500,000 as well as Tima and Parker.
And that's something that needs to be brought up more, needs to be discussed more. I mean, it's really, really difficult to compete in today's environment and atmosphere because of those reasons. I mean, you only got what you got. And when you got a team like Penn State and Oklahoma State and Iowa that have, all these like ching ching ching, I mean, how can a team like for example, Duke. Let's just saying here real quick. Let's take a look at Duke real quick and what they got going against them there. I mean, their school pretty much just says, okay, we'll allow you to have a wrestling program. We're not going to give you anything. We're not going to help you out at all. We're not going to do anything other than let you wear our colors and say your name across your singlet. But other than that, they have nothing. So how can a team like Duke compete with a team like Iowa when you're talking about these factors? It's just unreal.
Well, I think for a fact that you need the support from AD, you need the support from alumni. Like let's say that with OU. Like we know OU, the top five all time. They're one of the best when they're really good and all, but in the past few years, alumni don't really care. They haven't had as much money as they used to. But I will say, like under Roger Kish and the Mark Hollis, the director of operations, that the team has gotten so much better due to the fact that the RTC website is finally up by Bash Mania, which was really good, and the donations have been coming in. That's the one thing you need money to have a good wrestling program, so you
You
can
do.
get them resources like a new weight room, wrestling room. Let's say if someone gets injured, they need stuff to help them out. Like Duke, they had two good wrestlers last year with Aiden Wallace and Connor Burkett, and they returned both of those guys. Both of them, uh, well, one of them was an NCAA qualifier. That's also like saying like a team like Cleveland State, they discontinued
Yeah.
the program. They had one good wrestler, Daniel Buknavic, and they lost that program. That was the second time that they discontinued that team.
I mean, look, what I was trying to say, like with Coach Glenn Lanham of Duke. I mean, that's amazing considering that his resources are practically nothing, and yet he has two kids on his team this year. One of them already an NCAA Division I qualifier, and the other one going to be, in my opinion, in 2026. If you look at it from that perspective, then what he's doing there has just been unbelievably, awesome. And even in years prior, Conrad Dudziak, um, I'm not this put me on the spot here, but the Fine Silver brothers, and then there's another wrestler he had that was a two-time NCAA semifinalist, two-time NCAA All-American, but I can't think of he's actually a professional wrestler right now. I can think of his professional wrestling name, but his real name isn't coming to me. Julius Creed of WWE was a two-time All-American, but his real name just isn't coming to me right now. But yeah, it's been amazing what he's been able to do there, and just looking at it from that perspective. Alrighty, man. So we're getting
Yeah,
down
I
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying that I feel bad for these smaller programs that don't like. You could say a former team like Notre Dame. Notre Dame always been a
No,
football
no,
school. They're
dude,
always going to be a.
you, you picked the wrong subject for me. Don't get me started on Notre Dame, man. Have you read my
You
article
good?
on Notre Dame yet?
No, but I feel like I need to.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of shady crap going on in South Bend, Indiana, back in the early '90s.
yeah, I got one more pick at 149. Jack
Sure, you go ahead.
Geoffrey of Oklahoma.
Good
He
pick.
went he went 10-8 last. I know this is some bias, but he went 10-8 last year. He had a very huge win against Panero Johnson, which in my opinion was the biggest upset, the second biggest upset in that tournament behind Gable losing. And uh he's a one-time qualifier, but he's been looking really good in the room. He's got Alex Braun, Tyler Wells, and Rafael Hippolito, and he's got some other guys like Cam Sikora is helping him out a lot with his offense, and he looks really good.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Tough kid. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we are running out of time. So this is going to have to be a part one of maybe a part two. We will be back soon. I want to thank Cradle Zone for being a part of this podcast today. And on behalf of him and JT1 Wrestle, part two coming up pretty soon.